parts of the rocking horse, which eventually we'll put together. And also here you can see the head and neck. Right, I'm going to start trying to carve this horse's head for a rocking horse. I'm going to be doing that with the proxine rather than hammer and chisel. I'll make it easy for myself with this tool, and we'll see how we go. I've never carved a wooden horse's head before, so here goes. I'm going to start off by cutting out between the ears first with the coping saw, and then see how we progress. As I said in the beginning of the video, I was going to use my grinder to remove most of the material, but it turns out that I soon burnt it out, which I've looked into, and it seems to be a regular thing with these proxines that you can burn them out, evidently. So I've had to revert back to my chisels and rasps, so I'll continue with that. As you can see, I've finished all the shaping, and I did the sanding down, finished all the sanding down. I didn't want to film that because it's just monotonous watching somebody sand a piece of wood. So anyway, but what I'd like to show you is the beauty of this piece of walnut, and hopefully it'll spring to life once I put some sanding sealer. I'm using a spirit base sanding sealer to just cover it and give it a good soaking, and you'll see how dark perhaps it will go. Some white milliput to actually go behind the eyeball, and hopefully it'll show up the eyes more. Great, and when that goes off, I'll go over it lightly with some wire wool just to blend it in. I think I've covered everywhere now. And we'll come back later when we start putting the eyes in. As you can see, I've got this spike coming out of his eye. It's a bit painful, but what it is, I've drilled a hole there, and on this eye you've got a little bit of wire. Hopefully I can poke it into that hole. But first of all I need to put some of this lilliput, white lilliput around it. So here goes. No idea whether it's going to work. Right, as you can see I've got it all fixed together. That's the shoulder pieces. But before I did that, I fixed this centerpiece down with my pocket hole jig. So I had 2 screws either side and glued down to the base, and just with the 4 screws it oozed out the glue. And you'll notice I'm using some dark wood glue so that once it dries it'll go up and blend in with the wood, hopefully. But these pieces are attached either side, as you can see. I really had to make sure that each one was fitting tightly, and because I didn't want the joints showing at all once we carved it all away. But it looks as though it's gone up fairly tight all round, really. I won't really know until I start carving away, but obviously I won't be doing that until I've got it all assembled together. So the next thing I'll be doing is working on the legs before I attach it to this base. I'll move this over here. You'll see this is the base that I'll be attaching the legs to. But so before I do that, I want to try and roughly shape down the lower part of the legs before I attach it to this. So that'll be my next job. So see you then. As you can see, I've roughly rounded over the legs from the ankle to the knee sort of thing, and it is just roughly, just get the bulk of it off, but I've left the hooves square because I've got to notch them out once I've got it all assembled together, and they've obviously got to fit on the rail, so that'll be done later. So the next job is to attach them to this base, and but that'll be tomorrow, won't be today. Alright, so we're going to have some tea. Right, what we're going to do next is attach the legs to the base. So I've trimmed them all up, got them fitting as nice as I could, but you can also see on this, look, the ripple effect on this beautiful bit of walnut, because there's a massive great knot here that I've utilised. Rather than waste the timber, I've kept this large knot in this large piece. It's not going to move or go anywhere, it's absolutely bone dry. And I've actually filled the crack with some black milliput. But it's a shame, this is going to be hidden, but on the reverse it's more so. So if you have to look underneath the horse, you will see beautiful ripple effect. So anyway, what we're going to do is attach that there to the base. And I'll think what I'm going to do is glue it, and then I'm going to drill it and screw it together. So we'll slap some glue on. See, I've attached some muscle blocks onto the legs all round. I've also flattened this right off, ready for the next section to go on. But also, according to the plans, they had nothing underneath here. And when you look at the finished horse, it's sort of square here, so I thought I'd attach a couple of blocks and try and make a smooth transition to the shape of the legs. But I've also, I don't know whether it'll clear the actual beam that it's going to swing on. So that's what we'll have to check as we go along. But I thought it would look nicer if it had a smooth transition. But that's the plan anyway. And also, talking about the plans, you can get these plans from a rocking horse shop in Yorkshire, and you could go on their website, just put in rocking horse shop and it'll get you to there and give you details of plans and lots of other goodies that you can get off of that company. But in their plans you've got to assemble it all together and then start carving. But this is going to be so heavy, being in this solid walnut, I thought I'd put it in the vise and try and get some of this bulk off before I assemble the rest of it. That's the plan anyway, so we'll go ahead and see if we can remove some of this bulk. As you can see, I've made a start on the legs, started to carve it, most of it the way. I wanted to get rid of most of the bulk before I attach the top. But before we attach the top, we're gonna, as tradition states evidently, that this void that you can see in the top here is where the rocking horse makers put items to be sealed for a later date. Whoever comes to redo the horse at some time, if it ever starts falling apart, they can discover how it was made and who made it, and that's the general idea. So we've just got a letter, the food prices and what have you, photos, coins, newspaper. So that is going to go in to our void and sealed for who knows how long when. And then we're just going to seal it permanently with the top. So that's my next job, is to get this seating right and glue it down, clamp it up, and then we can start the real work of carving. So that's our next job. Right, now as you can see, I have made a start on the bodywork. I've rounded it off. I took it outside yesterday and used my disc cutting tool and took most of the majority of the waste away. But the only reason I did that was because it was shaded out there in the afternoon. So this morning I'm gonna have a go at carving with my chisels and perhaps my rasps, try and put a bit of shape into this front here if I can. As you can see, I've bubble wrapped the head because I should be throwing this all over the place, and it's really heavy, being dense walnut. So yeah, so we give it a go and see how we get on with a bit of carving and rasping to try and shape this front a bit. Trying to get some muscle definition in there if I can, but we'll see how we go. finished all the sanding, and I've put 3 coats of Osmo oil and wax. It's a very hard finish. It's mainly used for floors, but so it's a really good quality finish. But what you've got to do is put it on and wipe it off immediately. Don't leave it to sit on there at all. I made the mistake of getting rapid Osmo oil and wax, and it goes off extremely fast. Luckily I had my daughter with me, because as soon as I was putting it on she was wiping it off. And it's had 3 coats, and I find that's plenty. And then I finished it off with crystalline wax polish, and you put it on for 20 minutes and then just wipe it off. But it's come up beautiful. I mean, it's just the timber that's really, the timber produces such a good finish. And as you can see, I don't suppose you're too impressed with my runners, but they're just temporary there, just to lift the hooves off the ground, just in case I damage them. So they're only there temporary, but they're smaller than what the actual runners will be. And this is how I marked out for the notches. It's just you place the runner up against the leg, and then it explains in the plans, but just go scribe round it with a compass, and just notch it out. And then we come on to the fitting the saddle, the tail and the mane. Well, as you can see, I cut the hole out, but I cut it out without measuring the end of the actual tail. And of course, when I went to put it in, it sort of just rattles around inside. So what I did was I created a little, if you like, golf tee. I put a bridle through the centre, and then put a point on this bit of ebony that I had in the workshop, and turned up a little golf tee, and then forced it through, pushing the actual hair out, so that when we come to fit it in, it fits really nicely in there. And also it helps to stick the tail out a bit. As you can see, I don't know if you can see that it is a lovely fit in there. And normally they tell you to put a strap around here to sort of hide up any discrepancies. Well, I don't want to hide up this wood at all, if I can help it. So I'm going to leave it without the strap on there. And also they tell you about putting a martingale strap down here. I'm not going to do that at all. I'll just put the mane on, and then obviously the bridle, and then the saddle. Well, you can see I've fitted the block, and that's fitted roughly 15 degrees, at an angle of 15 degrees. Cut the slot in there and then chiseled it out. But I looked at the saddle and I thought, well, a bit of Purple Heart would virtually be the same colour. Now, I do suffer from colour blindness, so I wasn't too sure. It wasn't until my daughter came round and said that, yeah, I think you'll get away with it. And it does match quite nicely with the block. So I was pleased with that. So all in all, it's gone quite well. And ready for put the staples in. I'm going to put them in, I think, after I've got the saddle cloths on. I thought about putting some toothpicks in the hole with a point so that I can press it in and then put the staples in afterwards rather than cut. And it normally tell you to cut it, but that's the plan. Whether they'll work, I don't know. But anyway, my next job is to glue the tail in. So let's give it a go. We're all set up now to make the stand. I've cut everything out to size and also routed all the way round with an overload, just to give it a bit of definition and a bit of shape. I've even done that to the hoof rails, but I've left this side obviously square where the hoofs go, back and front, but it's obviously got to be rubbed down first, right through the grades with the sandpaper, and then we can think about assembling. I've still got holes to drill for these brackets where these swing arms go, and then we've got to think about turning the column. Now, I've already worked out sort of shape roughly, and we've obviously got two of those to make. I've got the other one set up on the lathe. I've taken the corners off to make it a bit easier for me to turn it to the round, because as you can imagine, oak is pretty hard. But so that's the next stage, and then we can start thinking about putting the whole thing together. But as you can see, I've pre-cut the holes. I'll drill the holes once I've got these cross pieces assembled onto this, I think, so that I can drill straight down through the pair of them. So the next step is getting on the lathe and start turning. Right, we're going to start off by rounding off all the corners. And then we can mark out with our pattern what shape and that we're going to finish up with. I've got to cut some spigots on either end to go through the holes in the main framework, and then go from there. As you can see, we've got our stand together. There's the column, two columns I turned earlier, and I've cut and put two wedges on each side and obviously underneath, just to make sure that it's really held fast. But I had quite a good fit going into these the spigots that I put onto these columns, so it should be really solid and secure. And all that needs doing now is for me to trim these off, obviously, sand them down flush underneath as well, and then the horse's for the hooves to fit into. These need to be sanded down, and they'll eventually go onto those swinging arms. And so really we're getting near the end now, and after I've finished obviously sanding it all down, then we'll think about putting the Osmo oil on to coat it, maybe 2-3 coats, see how it goes. But yeah, so we're getting near the end. Right, as you can see, we're just putting the finishing touches to the stand. I put 3 coats of the old Poly-X oil, which is Osmo oil, high solid. It's for wooden flooring and furniture, but it's also recommended for children's toys, so it's perfectly safe to use. So it's had 3 coats, and then I put a coat of crystalline wax on it. So we're all ready now to fix the swing arms on it. So first of all, we need to screw the actual plates on. That they actually go on to. So I've already drilled a little pilot hole, so I'm hoping that they'll go in easy enough. But it's been a great project to work on, and I'd highly recommend it. And the thought of making something that would give children a lot of pleasure. And then we can put a bit of grease on the actual runner that the arm's going to swing on. So we don't really want much. The front. Now I've had to alter these so that one's a bit narrower than the other. Well, I'm hoping the measurements are going to be okay. Right. And that goes on top of there. And obviously I've pre-drilled the holes. finished now. This project has been on my bucket list for a long time, and I'm so pleased that I've managed to get around to do it. And I've thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of making it, from you know, the carving and obviously the turning of the columns. But really all that's left to do is that I've ordered a little brass plate with my name and the year, obviously 2020, that it was built, to attach on there. So that's really all I've got to do, and wait and see who's going to be the first rider to ride on it. So any comments, put down below, and any questions at all about making the rocking horse, then I'll be more than happy to answer them. But yeah, look forward to doing the next one. Bye for now.